Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another session of the Insight Forum. It's a rainy day out here in Karachi, and some of you might have preferred working from home today, like I'm doing right now. Uh, Although the weather demands us to have cravings for some hot snacks and food, but it is also important for us to fill in our minds with some learning nuggets. Uh, we must have observed that during the lockdown period, many top-notch training organizations and education institutions opened doors for general public to enroll in their programs, and that too literally at zero cost. Many students and professionals took this as an opportunity to learn some new skills, to enhance their subject knowledge, and to remain productive during this slow work period. Uh, During this challenging time, people understood the importance of learning multiple skills and to have a set of technical and other soft skills to remain in business. So whoever wants to, progress in his or her career and professional life, they have now understood that just being good or best in one field might not work in future. So our topic for today is also on the similar lines, that is learning for life, a roadmap to continuous development. And to talk about it, we have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Leon Menezes. Although a lot of people who are out there in the corporate sector know Leon a lot. I mean, he is HR veteran. But let me introduce you to the ones who are still not familiar with Leon. Leon is currently a professor of practice at the IBA Karachi and is teaching courses related to management, organizational behavior, human resource management, and leadership. He has also served as director for our center, which I'm leading at the moment, IBS Career Development Center. He has nearly 40 years of work experience in human resources, sales and marketing, operations, and customer services in a variety of industries. He has worked with some of the top notch organizations, including American Express, Deutsche Bank, and Shell Pakistan. His areas of expertise are executive leadership and personal development, coaching, and change management. He is one of the Pakistan's most prominent speakers on HR, leadership, and personal development. He has been writing articles in Dawn newspaper and Newsline for the past many years. So let's welcome Mr. Leon to our segment. Thank you, Leon, for providing your time and for sparing your time for this segment and particularly bringing out this all important topic.
Thanks, Danish, for the opportunity. I'm told that it's now customary to wave when you're on camera, but I think that's at the end. That's at the end of the show and not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things that Danish really didn't tell you was how many times I've been unemployed, that I've been right-sized and downsized, invited to leave. All sorts of things have happened in life. So when I speak to you about these various things that should be of help to you, they've been of tremendous help to me as well. I think one of the things that the pandemic has shown is how important it's to be ready before the event. So no one knew that this was going to happen. But if you look at the business world, if you look at corporate world, look at all the products and services out there, there is so much disruption that's taking place. Companies who are ready beforehand, who are always scanning the environment, are looking at it. What we tend to do sometimes is look at maybe direct competition, whereas competition is actually coming from other sources as well. So we need to be looking at it from a holistic point of view. I'll tell you, even when people come to me for help with writing their CVs, it's like your life has just started now when you're writing the CV. No, your life has to be a good amount of achievement and service for well before you start writing the CV. Um, I'm going to use something I've not done before, and I'm going to use all the management tools that we've learned, all the way from principles of management right up to MBA, with regard that we do for businesses, but they are equally applicable to us in a personal way, and we don't ever look at it and we don't ever use it for ourselves. I'm going to start and I'm going to share my screen. So then maybe you won't see me. By the way, I'm wearing some nice makeup for this event.
I think Leon's screen has stuck a bit. Maybe we can try it out. All right, so I think Leon has some technical issues at his hand. So guys, we will be reconnecting with Leon shortly. This particular session is really important for the ones who have just entered the market, and they need to understand that, although you are graduate now and you have just entered the market, but your actual learning starts here. So you need to be on top of your game, and definitely there are numerous platforms through which you can nurture yourself, nourish yourself, and enhance your current skills and knowledge. And that's why we have thought to bring this topic to you today. And we have a fantastic speaker lined up. Leon is an amazing person himself. He also conduct a lot of trainings as part of his profile. So I'm sure that once he'll be back, he has a very fantastic presentation to share with all of you, with insightful knowledge and insightful uh, you know uh, uh, topic to share. So let's wait for a while, as soon as he joins in. Meanwhile, let me check it out with him whether he has some. Uh, yes, Haris, we can definitely understand it's raining heavily, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are having issues with their mobile signals, the internet issues, and all. And I'm also out of electricity right now, and working through UPS system. That's the beauty of working from home as well. There are challenges, there are issues, but the learning should continue. The motive behind hosting these sessions is to engage you as a learner and those who want to go up in their life. So just stay tuned. Let me check it out with Leon, whether he is with us or not, or is he having some issues. Let me check it out. Meanwhile, just stay tuned.
at all.
All right, so we have Leon with us once again. I think there was some technical issue. We can now start off with your presentation, Leon.
Okay, so any idea where we got cut off from at all?
Yeah, I think you haven't started your presentation, so let's start from the beginning.
Okay, so very quickly, I would just want to share that um, this pandemic has given us a very good opportunity to realize that we need to be prepared before the event. Okay, organizations that look to prepare themselves after the event are losing out compared to people who have prepared from before. Now, it's not like we know what's going to happen, but by scanning the environment and doing business continuity processes and looking at other alternatives is how we prepare ourselves. So, your whole life must be prepped for the future. And when I look back at some of the things that I have done, um, they have been quite, let's say, I've been ready for my next assignment without knowing what the next assignment is to be. So I'm going to use some of the tools that we've used, starting from principles of management all the way up to your MBA programs, for those of you who have done MBA, and look to see how it is that we can use it as a personal, for our personal benefit, because they are very helpful. So if we start with principles of management, we learn about vision, mission, values. We learn about the general task and internal environments, planning, leading, organizing, controlling, and of course, financial and marketing planning. Okay. We also learn how to make strategies, and that's a critical element of running any organization. It's also a critical element of running your life. We also encourage you to make friends with who, what, where, when, how, and why. I've left out the when there, because then what happens is that we are able to diagnose as opposed to going into problem solving. Even if you follow court cases on TV and stuff like that, the prosecution has a strategy, the defense has a strategy. In politics, everybody's got a strategy. In cricket, everybody has a strategy. So that's how you got to keep using these tools. One of the things that I found to be very useful for a lot of the work in terms of analyzing situations, diagnosing situations, also, and going beyond first appearance. Some of you may have come across this diverse iceberg of diversity, but we're using this here differently. When we see the success that people have, like Danish mentioned about me, ooh, I sound so successful. But below the waterline, you don't see all the different things that have gone into making someone what he is today. The same thing could be said if somebody was a failure. We may say, oh, hard luck, oh, this is difficult, and so on and so forth. But we have no clue what's gone on below the waterline. So, above the waterline are the actions that we see, below the waterline are the attitudes that we bring to the table. Now, our attitudes come from the subconscious mind, or what we call the mental model. And if you look to see, we could either have a success mindset or a failure mindset, financially successful or financially unsuccessful, and so on and so forth. Do we bring optimism to the table, or we start from a position of helplessness and then have to convert it to optimism? So those are the kind of things that we need to be monitoring. I've put two items here in red: can I or I can. Can I is asking for permission, or it's creating doubt in your own mind. I can, on the other hand, is telling yourself, yes, I can do it, and giving you the positive mental outlook that you need. The conscious mind is your basic operating system at a very simple level, your planning and stuff like that. The subconscious mind is what is driving you forward or backwards. And if you remember your vision, mission, and values, okay, your vision and mission is your purpose in life. Okay, why are you here? Why do you exist? Where do you want to go? What is your horizon? Those are the kinds of things. Now we're doing it for companies, but we don't do it for ourselves. And similarly, for the values, what is it? All those different positive personal attributes that can help us along. This is what goes into formulating our strategy. Okay. Then, when it comes to the SWOT analysis, We're looking at the general and the task environments. We do not examine what's happening in our profession. And there are so many changes. Okay. Simple thing like with this pandemic and lockdown, how many of us have now had to adapt to online work and online teaching and online learning and all sorts of different things? It's impacting the profession. Who knows what's going to happen forward? Okay. How useful will teachers be when you can just go and Google a good lecture and listen to it and go into an online university and get your degree, but not like exact. Okay. And a good solid online university. So what's happening in my profession? If I'm in accounting, if I'm in finance, if I'm in operations, engineering, there is so much by way of just pure technology that is impacting us, even at a personal level. Okay. What's happening in my company, the industry, the competition, whatever it is, how am I preparing myself with this knowledge? How am I helping my company with this knowledge? And this, I'll tell you, the quality of a good strategy depends on what you put into the SWOT analysis, all the information that you gather or discard. And that is how a good strategy is made, depending on what you are scanning in the external environment. Okay. Remember, we did external environment, internal environment, opportunities, threats, all those different things. What's happening with world affairs? How are the new geopolitical realignments going to impact us in Pakistan? What does that mean for trade? What does that mean for anything? Those are the kinds of things that we need to be looking at continuously. Again, then you come to the internal environment, okay? And that, again, involves so many other things that are unique to me, okay? And with starting with my health, we don't need to wait for your first heart attack or bypass to start thinking about exercise and diet and really generally moving around. Uh, Health, wealth, and happiness are so closely interrelated to everything else that we do in our lives. But the thing is, we don't look at it that way. Health is the most important out of it all. You may have the money. Steve Jobs had a lot of money, and even though he had a what pancreatic transplant, it still didn't work for him. And at the age of 56, he was dead. Okay, so on and so forth. So the thing is, you got to watch these things from well beforehand. How are you in your interactions with your family? What are your finances like? How are you planning that? And we'll be talking a little bit about that later. So there's this internal environment and all these different things that you need to be looking at. I'm going a little fast because I want you to have some time for question and answer later on. Here, then we come to planning, leading, organizing, controlling. Okay. So you need to have day plans, you need month plans, you need to talk about the future. Yes, I know people like me will always be talking about living in the moment. The past is no more, the future is not yet. But at the same time, I got to plan my schedule, I got to plan my days, I got to plan my activities, family activities, all sorts of different things. Not to forget my finances, getting my car serviced, anything. Everything requires planning. When you plan forward and up do it what you call front loading, then you don't have to scramble later on. Okay. In terms of leading yourself and leading others, very often we're always talking in terms of leadership about being leaders of others. But leading oneself means taking responsibility for what it is that we want to do. How do we manage our time? How do we manage our resources? We'll be talking about that as well. And similarly with finances. Okay. If you've been following the news with regard to this pandemic as well, you'll realize that so many people in USA, Canada, Europe were living hand to mouth in terms of the money they had, paying for their mortgages, paying for the installments on the goods and services that they had. They were completely broke by the second or the third month. So those are the kind of things that you need to take into account. Yes, you need to live for the moment. You need to be spending now, but you also need to be worrying about these things for later, or planning, I should say, not worrying. So at a personal level, you'll do your action plan. And again, you can use the balance scorecard to track your progress. Again, with financial planning, monthly, annual, future, there are so many things that you will have to pay for in the future that you almost never have enough money for. So being prudent in your lifestyle right now is what will help you later on in life. Now we come to something very Um, Very interesting. Some people don't like the way in which it's presented, but the fact of life is, if you were a product or a service, what would you be? Okay. So now the thing is, the what would you be? You can say you could choose to be a Suzuki or you could choose to be a Ferrari. Slight difference in the price. You could choose to be a Timex or a Rolex. Both tell the time. One costs $40, the other costs $4,000. What do you want to be? So you would need to position yourself for something like that. Would you be something that would be sold on a push cart, maybe outside of Muskan Gate or in Jodia Bazaar? Or would you be sold in a nice department store somewhere in New York or London or Paris? You need to choose who you want to be. So the thing is, where would you be sold is your availability. And these are all principles of marketing. Okay? Remember, product, price, promotion, price, so on and so forth. Um, what price could you ask? Again, $40 for a Timex, $4,000 for a Rolex, entirely up to you. So the value that you are providing other people, okay, is also what is the um, price that you could command for yourself. Then again, what would your slogan be? So now this is really, really critical elements of uh, personal branding. What is your slogan? We know that Nike is just do it. We know what Coke is. We know what this one is, that one is. But you yourself need to have a slogan or a motto by which you live. So you see how this works for yourself. What is the USP that you are offering? And remember one thing, especially when I tell students, when you go out, you're not only competing with your classmates, you're competing with other batchmates, you're competing with other disciplines, competing with people from other universities. And of course, you've got lots of compatriots who come back from overseas. So there's a lot of competition that goes into the workplace. And even after you are in the workplace, there's that much more competition. So, how are you differentiating yourself from the other people there? Again, with personal branding, okay, are you the best version of yourself? And what do I mean by that? Are you bright and cheerful? Or are you one of those grumpy kind of people who come in dragging themselves into the office, sucking up the energy of everybody else, seeing the negative side of life? Do you take responsibility for things that happen, or do you wait for other people to take responsibility? And that's what leadership is all about. Leadership is not position, and it's not permission. It's about you seeing an opportunity or seeing a need and going and addressing that need. I have not seen a single successful person in the corporate world who's ever gone and asked his boss or line manager, what about my future? What about my career? What about my development? They go and they do it for themselves. Okay? Are you helpful to others? And this is what makes you so valuable or invaluable to other people as well. You know, there are so many moments that we can coach younger people, we can mentor younger people, even colleagues. We can tell people in a nice way what it is that they can do better or what is they're doing that's harming themselves. And then, are you a role model? We also need role models, but then are you a role model to other people in terms of the behavior that you display? So there's a lot more than just wearing nice clothes and posting on social media to personal branding. Okay, there is content and there's presentation. There is substance to you, but the substance also needs to be very nicely presented. Here's a question: what do you do with your time? The richest man in the world and the poorest man in the world have exactly the same amount of time in the day. Very often I get pushback from students and say, yeah, but the rich man has so many people to help him, whereas the poor person has to go and do it all on his own. Yes, that's very true. But the rich man who has all these people to help him, maybe spending his time on social media, maybe playing video games, maybe lazing about, whereas the poor person who takes the bus to go to IBA and back is actually reading in the bus as opposed to somebody who's sitting in a Mercedes playing video games. So the thing is, It's what you do with your time. Also, how long has it been since your last degree? Okay. So the way in which you approach your time, when people come and ask me, say you got 5 minutes, I say that's 5 minutes of my life. Remember, it never comes back. So what you do with your time, how you be productive, and even if it's leisure time, you are proactively doing your leisure. If you're goofing around, it should be proactive. It should be thought through that, yes, this is what I want to do. Now, when I ask about your last degree also, continuing education is not only about accumulating degrees, it's about gaining the knowledge that we talked about earlier with regard to your industry and global affairs. And by the way, there's so many other things in life, okay? Reading a bit of philosophy, sociology, a little bit of psychology helps you understand not only your place in the world, but your interactions with other people. Here's something some of you may or may not recognize, okay? And in an open system, people who are into developing their networks and relationship are interacting with a hell of a lot of people in a lot of spheres. Now, mind you, this is not something that you do all the time. You cannot be all the time in your club and all the time in Rotary and all the time in alumni, but these are bits and pieces that you do throughout the year, maybe in a period of once in a month, maybe once in a year or whatever it is, but you need to go out and connect with people. You learn from them, they learn from you. Your networks is what is going to help you with your business, with your career, with your learning, with so many other things. I'll tell you, even a simple thing like getting an appointment with a doctor sometimes depends on the network that you have. And we live in a society where these kind of networks are so important. I have lots and lots of stories to tell you, by the way, on each and every one of these kind of things. But on the other hand, there are people, I'll tell you, I've been teaching now for nearly 8 years, and there are always students who are going to say, but sir, I'm an introvert. But sir, I'm an introvert. Please understand, introversion is not a disability. It's a preferred way of life. To a large extent, I'm an introvert. I love being by myself. I read, I do crosswords, whatever it is I do, I like being by myself. But I can also go out and interact. And I've made the transition from being introverted and shy and whatever not to actually going out and learning to speak and learning to interact with other people. It's a long journey, but the thing is, you have to be aware that it's something that you want to do and then put it into action as well. Okay, so we're doing pretty good on time. I think I've been racing a little bit. So we'll have a lot more time for questions. So here's something else now in terms of personal growth. So when we are looking at ourselves, we're usually looking at it from a career point of view. Okay, we have attached to career. Of course, it brings in the money, and it takes care of lots of things. And if we look at Maslow's hierarchy, we looked at the physiological needs are taken care of. Then we come to the belongingness needs, and that's what our companies do for us. The titles that we have and we so proudly display on our business cards, and all the other interactions that we have involve status, they involve money, they involve good material stuff, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, there's the whole element of personal growth. And personal growth involves doing so many new things. Okay. So on the one hand, we talk about new hobbies. I'll tell you when I showed the slide with regard to networks and growing your networks, most of the people I know who've immigrated to Canada are hanging around with just their community people, their compatriots, or their IBA colleagues. They are not interacting with a larger environment, whether it's their own doing, whether it's the structure of society or whatever it is. I think there are many, many opportunities that they can do. When you get into new hobbies, you end up realizing that there are so many more people that I can interact with. Take, for example, these cycling clubs that have come up all over the country in the last few years. Started out with just a few people riding around in Clifton, and now every day you ride up and down Sharai Faisal and other parts of the city. You see all these people in their wonderful outfits, their wonderful bikes, and their wonderful helmets, but they've made so many more friends. So when you take up a new hobby, Those are the opportunities you have to increase your um, network. Okay, how many books do you read? One of my favorite questions, and we've been doing MBA interviews and BBA interviews these last few months. I ask each and every candidate, do you read? What do you read? And it's amazing how few people actually read. Okay, and you can't come into a business institution, you cannot survive in your business and in your profession if you don't read. I also do some executive coaching, and this again my favorite question: what do you read? Most people say they don't. Most people say they have not done anything with continuing education for later on in life after they've graduated. One fellow even proudly said to me, "Sir, I read my first book after 11 years." Come on, seriously, this is you, this is your life, this is your career, this is your future. So these are the kinds of things you need to do. Okay, what self-help book have you read? What positive psychology book have you read? What uh, thing that in terms of personal development? Okay, I know that there's a lot of criticism with regard to positive psychology. Oh, it's all airy fairy. What's this book called? The Secret or Law of Attraction and stuff like that. But tell me something. How does negative psychology work? How does having a negative worldview help you in any way? How is being a pessimist helping you in any way? Yes, there are certain practical reasons why in organizations, in a meeting, you have someone who will play the devil's advocate to bring another point of view because everything can't be rosy. And just because I say so, it's right. But the thing is, that can't be the philosophy that you have in life. Okay? In terms of self renewal, we're again talking about physical, emotional, spiritual. By the way, there are 10,000 other things that we could talk about, but we don't have time because it's lovely rainy weather outside and you got to get back to your pakoras and chai. But self renewal works at so many different levels. I've mentioned here the spiritual journey, and most of us don't get into the spiritual realm. We'll be involved in the ritual and the religion part of it, but the spirituality is what frees you and takes you to a completely different level. Bucket lists. How many of you have a bucket list? How many of you have decided, I would like to do this, I would like to do that? But liking something and making, these airy fairy plans is very, very different to putting it down on paper, putting a plan in action, uh, looking to see who can help you, what resources can you get. There are many places to visit, there are many things to do. My bucket list, I would really, really, really love to jump out of an airplane, preferably with a parachute, but yes, definitely with parachute. I would love to hang glide, maybe parasail, do all these wonderful things that I've not had the opportunity to do yet. I've gone whitewater rafting, I've gone up in a glider, I've been in a Cessna 150, a small plane. I've done so many different things, okay, and that is where the self renewal comes in. When you're doing all these different things, you are renewed. Um, there was a time I did a lot of stage plays. That got me so many new friends, and I learned so many things about myself. I got into yoga many years ago. Again, I met so many new people, met so many new friends, and my self renewal continues to this day because of what I learned in yoga. Through my drama and whatever not, a friend suggested, why don't you write? I started writing for the Friday Times. I have like more than 150 articles there. And then it translated to Dawn and to so many other publications. So that's how the renewal part goes. It's not necessary that you're doing everything all the time right today, but you can be doing stuff on an ongoing basis. So don't forget your bucket list. We're coming to the end now. Let's not forget our relationships. So if I asked you, what is the difference between pleasure and happiness? You probably think that they are the same thing. But pleasure is usually what you get from, yes, we can get the pleasure from other people's company, but it's the relationships that give you happiness. You don't get happiness from an iPhone, you might get pleasure from using that iPhone. Also, then, if you go back to your theories of motivation, how long does that motivation last or that spirit of great fun that I got this new phone? It's for a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. After that, it's just part of your equipment. So, working on your relationships, my brother used to say to me, heaven and hell is in your relationships. And when you reflect about it, think about it. You have good neighbors, you're in heaven. You have a good spouse, you're in heaven. You have good children, you're in heaven. You have good parents, you have good boss, good teachers, you got good colleagues. Look at the blessings that you have there. The opposite is so true when you have the nasty ones out there. Okay. So understand that we also need to work on the relationships that we have with regard to the our inner circle. We forget about the work relationships. We maybe worry just about the boss, but our peers are also a very important part of our relationship. Our parents are a very important part of it. And I'll tell you, there's one good thing about people in Pakistan is how they uh, keep their parents so much in front of them. I know lots of people who've given up lucrative jobs and positions overseas because their parents were getting older and they needed help and so on and so forth, and they came back. But don't forget about the me part of it. Okay, we seem to think that being selfish is a very bad thing, but selfishness is of several different kinds. I may be selfish in not sharing other things with you, but I should also be thinking about myself first. When you get on a plane, they always tell you to put on your own oxygen mask before helping other people. You are of no use to other people if you're useless. Okay, so taking care of yourself is so important, right? So look after yourself and all the other things that we talked about on the other slide as well. And in summary, this is my second last slide. Input and output. Okay, your car can only run or be pushed by people if you don't have petrol for a certain distance. Afterwards, they're going to say, forget it, you're going to push it yourself. So you got to be filling your tank all the time. You got to keep charging the battery on your phone all the time. So the input is very, very critical to the output. If you're not reading, what is the output going to be? If you're not exercising, what is your output going to be? If you're not looking at your diet, what's your output going to be? So the input is really, really important for the output that you want. And what you do for yourself is what you will get. I guarantee you the result of your own effort. Isn't that such a huge curse? So let that sink in. Next, there are things that are in your control, and there are things that are not in your control. So you need to understand, and you need to can. This is something locus of control and whatever not we've all learned in BBA and MBA and so on and so forth. There are things that you can manage, and in yoga philosophy, they say, do what is in your control, and then leave the result to the universe, universal energy, the Almighty, whatever it is. Okay, I have this famous saying of mine: we all believe in God, but we don't trust Him. If we trusted Him, our attitude to life and our attitude to our work would be completely different. And it's not to say Allah Malik dekha jayega and leave everything and say it's fate and it's destiny, but you have to put in the work to leave the result. Lastly, you need to take responsibility for your life. Okay? And that again goes back to what's in your control and what's not in your control. Um, yes, there are circumstances. Yes, you're not responsible for your DNA. So, how tall you will be, how rotund you will be, or the future health issues you might have in your life as a result of your DNA and a result of your genetics and your inheritance and so on and so forth. But there's only so much that you can blame for your parents for. So, certain things in your life, some people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth and they go on to bigger and better things. Some people are lucky to be able to go to colleges and universities like IBA and go overseas for studies and so on and so forth. But what do they do with it? Yet there are so many people who have not had those opportunities and they do so much with it. So the thing is, you have to take responsibility for the thing outcomes in your life and stop blaming other people. And my last slide: learn to be grateful. We are seriously in 1% of this country's population that have such huge advantages. Yes, some of us may be economically better off compared to other people. Some of us may be worse, some of us this and that. But still, the fact that we can go to an institution, the fact that we've graduated from an institution, the fact that we're working in good organizations or maybe hope to work in good organizations, okay, we have a lot of things to be grateful for. I can tell you one thing that I learned over a period of time, and I learned this before I got into HR, is about being grateful. Okay, and I realized also in the years that I worked in HR how miserable people make themselves with regard to the ingratitude that they have in life, or not being able to be grateful for what it is that they have. Those that are grateful have a happy disposition. Things happen for them. Okay, so I'm going to stop preaching now, and I would love to take your questions. Um, and gee, Danish, I can see you on screen.
Yeah, so thank you so much for a lovely presentation. I think it has a lot of insights and learning nuggets, as I talked about earlier as part of the introduction. So there are few comments and questions which came up on the screen while you were presenting. I
Hmm.
think one question is from Tahir Naeem. He's asking about the books that you recommend, which one must need to read or to remind ourselves to work on ourselves on personal and professional development. So, what kind of books are there which one should definitely read as to nurture himself or herself?
Okay, that's a very good question. And you must remember one thing with books: it's the it's your own personal journey and the time that you read that book that becomes important. So if somebody recommends a book to you while you're 21, it may not make as much sense to you as when you're 25 or 30 or 35. Okay. But at the very beginning of my career, somebody recommended this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I read and reread and reread and reread. Okay. And the principles in that book, the book is, by the way, nearly 100 years old. It's been updated. It'll help you throughout. I have found that all these books by Anthony Robbins are very, very helpful. And so there is stuff that's of a practical nature, and then there's stuff that like take you into another realm. There was a book that was very famous in the 70s called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And the premise of the story was that seagulls spend all their lives going and fighting for fish and squawking. If you've ever been to like where fish are being caught, you'll see how the seagulls behave. But there was this one guy, one seagull, who wanted to soar like an eagle. And of course, his whole community kept saying, no, no, don't be stupid, and so on and so forth. Just like people tell us, lo kya kahenge. So it was something that transformed a lot of people. There has to be an inflection point in your life, and the book needs to be part of that inflection point. And I see Hubab Sabir on the line. It's nice to see Hubab. Hubab, what's this? There's this idea of self care being selfish, but one can't pour from an empty jug. Absolutely 100%. That's what I was trying to say earlier. People, which is why I'll tell you, me time is so important. Okay. My exercise, my diet, my mental growth, my this is so important. And people always say, no, we are here for the service of others. Then what are the other people doing? Okay. Understand that. So you are absolutely right, sir. You cannot pour from an empty jug.
Yeah, you
Gee,
have
Navita.
another fan, Myra and Rose. They're huge
Oh,
fan of Leon. Yeah. Okay, so we have another question from Varda Khalid. She's asking how to deal with things that are out of our control but impact our mental health.
okay. So this thing about mental health now, I don't want to say anything that will get me in trouble because it's become a very, very sensitive and so subject over the last few years. Um, Mental health is a serious issue. Um, but if I look at how people are being brought up now compared to how people were being brought up before, I think a lot of it has to do with the nurturing and the environment that we live in. Okay. So unless you have chemical imbalance or some wiring issue um, that needs to be fixed by good professional help, a lot of us can work on our own mental health by doing certain positive things. First of all, start by writing down what it is that you're grateful for. Okay. You have limbs that work, you have eyes that work, you have voice that you can. There are 100,000 things just with your body that you can be grateful for. When you start your morning by saying, thank you for this, thank you for this, thank you for this, you have so much of positive energy to face the world. Okay. Um, I've had my own inflection points. When I was in sales a long time ago, I was driving here, driving there. I had this wonderful Mark II, but it had no air conditioning. And in the morning, I was in Korangi. In the afternoon, I was in site. 10 o'clock at night, I was driving down Charai Faisal to the TCS office to give passports to be sent to Islamabad. I was feeling really, really sorry for myself until on the left hand side, I saw a whole bunch of people waiting at a bus stop. 10 o'clock at night. And I said to myself, oh my God, I have a good job. I have a car. I have a house. I have this. How can I not be grateful for this? That moment changed my life. Okay. So you need to find things that are in your life that you're grateful for. Number two, spend time with positive people. Watch comedies. If I watch anything on TV, I would rather watch a comedy besides the news, which is another comedy element. I read the comics. I read lighter things. Look, you got to find it for yourself. Okay, I can turn around and say I'm so depressed because of this, that, and the other, and I'll tell you. And somebody said this to me that it's now becoming a little fashionable. Just like a few years ago, it was fashionable for people in their 40s to have bypasses and stents and so on and so forth. It's like becoming a little fashionable. So I'm sorry. I apologize if I've offended anybody. But seriously, you got to do some things for yourself. Yes.
Yeah, all right. So we have another question from Tahir. He's asking during mid-level of career, I mean mid-career professionals, sometimes we miss the part of learning and preparing ourselves for the future. So how to induct and add learning practically in our life?
Okay, so that's where I go back to the reading habit. Okay, so the brain is a muscle. The muscle needs to be active, to be functional, to be so on and so forth. So if you're not using your brain, and how do you use your brain? Okay, I'll tell you, video games can help you, right? But that's not input. That's only the part of the brain that's using the reflexes. You need to be reading, and the simple thing to do is start from reading newspapers, current affairs, and then go on to more serious things. If I tell you what my pleasure reading is, I go every now and then. I live very close by to Liberty Books. I'll go and buy. There's this wonderful series called the psychology book, the history book, the sociology book. I go and pick these things up. They cost about 2,000 rupees, hardcover, brilliant illustrations, everything. I'm not learning psychology. I'm not learning sociology. I'm learning about them. Okay. So when you learn about them, all of a sudden your mind starts expanding. I'll share something with you. Okay. I did my MBA very, 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 very late in life. And the reason I was able to do that was because I used to read and read and read. One of the questions I ask people who talk about personal development or let's say career development, I ask, what have you done for yourself? How many books and magazines have you bought from your own money? How many conferences and seminars and training sessions have you gone to on your own time and money? You understand that? It's about your own time and money, the effort that you put in for yourself. We're waiting for other people. Let the organization then do it for other people, not you. So, a mid career professional is at the most critical part of his life because he doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know whether he's got a future in this company. So, you need to be prepared internally and externally for what the future may hold.
All right. So we have an individual out here who is not an avid reader, and I think she wants to keep herself away from the books as well. So she's asking about the alternate methods of, keeping yourself motivated and keep moving on the learning scale. So what are some of the alternate methods? I think Leon must have shared all the other methods too, but maybe you can recap all those.
Yeah, okay, but this is a very critical thing. Okay, so one of the slides that I always use in class thing, those of you who want to learn, nothing can stop you. Those of you who don't want to learn, nothing can make you. Okay, so in this day and age of internet accessibility, there's absolutely no excuse for not knowing anything. Look at the amount of videos available, TED Talks available, Simon Sinek, all sorts of different people telling you. But Biko, without reading, it's not going to happen. Okay, reading is about exercising a certain part of the brain that then helps you with other things as well. you bring in so much of knowledge into your system. Okay, so there's one other thing: the way in which your brain works. And Danish, you know a lot about this because of your NLP background. Okay, so there's the visual part of it. Okay, there and then when you actually write, okay, you're exercising another part of your brain. When you listen, it's one other part of the brain. So they always say, if I do, I learn more than if I just listen or if I hear. So you need to be combining all three in order to give yourself a much better, um, a much better opportunity. Okay, so no matter how much I read about swimming, unless I go and swim, ain't gonna help me, right? Similarly,
Yeah.
you got to keep doing it.
Absolutely. I think this brings me to another interesting question that I have from my end. That we used to consider learning as part of a classroom thing, and lot of trainings going on in a classroom setting. And since this pandemic, people have turned their training program into an online interventions. But what's your take on this? That whether the classroom learning should be more encouraged, or the experiential learning should be made part of. Maybe you can talk about the industry academia linkages on these lines.
Okay, so let's say for a few years ago, um, there was a move because of, again, it's enabled by technology as well as you're looking at the cost. So if I used to go overseas for a 5 day program, what they combined was they made it what you call blended learning. So
Blended.
there'll be
Yeah.
a portion that we do personally beforehand. We'll do it online. We'll do it maybe through group interventions, and then you actually go for a face to face. Now, the value of a face to face is the social and the human interaction that you have with other people, and the
Mm.
conversations you have outside of the 30 minutes or 1 hour that we have online. Okay, so from a classroom point of view, for those of us who teach or those of us who go to school, there's nothing like the vibrancy of a classroom, the social interaction. Look at the amount of questions people can ask simultaneously. Okay, whereas here it's only one question at a time. People talk over each other. Here you can't talk over each other. So those are the kinds of things that help. So use what you can in the situation that you are in, but hopefully we can move to more face-to-face kind of stuff.
Right, right. And apart from that, I think it's more about going and experiencing what you are learning. So I've seen a lot of students taking, classes of principles of management, principles of marketing. But once they land into a job or perhaps internships, they found out that that there is a lot of difference between what is being taught in the classroom and what is being practiced out there in the world. So there are other practical ways through which you can enhance your learning as well.
Yeah, but
We have a
the thing,
question.
just one
Yeah,
with Danish, is that,
yeah,
what is taught in the classroom is what has been learned and observed from human behavior. All human
yeah,
behavior is then documented and brought into the classroom. Okay, so
right.
at the surface level, it might be different, but the principles below that will be the same. The other
Will
thing
be
with regard to
absolutely
learning is that we learn through osmosis. So the formal learning in the classroom and school and college is one thing. We're learning from our friends. We're learning subconsciously. We're absorbing from the environment, from TV, from the books, whatever. And remember, we are the average of the 5 people that we spend most of our time with. So
yeah,
that's what we're
absolutely.
learning as well.
Yeah, that's a very insightful point. Okay, so we have a question related to learning. So let me take
Yeah.
this first. How do we evaluate and validate the informal or self-directed learning that happens outside of the school or of the classroom?
Okay, I'm not really sure about what this question means,
I think
but let's
it's
just,
about, yeah. I
yeah,
I, I mean, in the classroom, we normally evaluate a student by taking a test or by taking a quiz, or perhaps the final examination. But when it comes to your own training and learning some books, going to several trainings and learning some new skills, maybe improve your language skills, how to evaluate and validate that informal form of self learning?
okay.
That's
So I think, yeah, so it would be learned by doing it. You validate it by doing it. So I think during this pandemic and even before, a lot of us were watching cooking shows on TV, maybe all these wonderful things. We haven't tried it. So the validation comes from actually trying it and then The first time you do it, it's going to be a mess, and after that, so on and so forth. It's the same thing with, I learn public speaking skills. So I've watched this TED talk, and I say, okay, fine, let me try it. But until I try it, until I record myself, until I look at the feedback, and then I actually go in front of an audience, that's where the validation will come from. Yes, you
Mm.
did a good job. Boo, Mr. Menezes, you did a lousy job. Those are the kinds of things that will get you. But
Right,
are you looking for validation from other people, or you're validating yourself?
right. So we have a question related to networking skills. So
Ah,
I find it difficult to interact with people. How to do away with this? How to grow your network?
okay, so let me ask you: do you like yourself? Okay. Do you stand in front of the mirror and say nice things to yourself? Do you brush your hair? I don't know it's male or female who's asking this question. Brush your hair and say, I feel good about myself. The world deserves to see me. The world deserves my interaction. The world deserves to interact with me. Look, you got to frame yourself in a positive way. Okay. I'm sharing with you that I used to be such a shy person that if there was a third person in the room, I would never speak. And look at me today. Shameless on Zoom, on what is it, all these different, totally shameless. But the thing is, you got to go through it. You'll get knocked down, but you got to keep trying. You'll mess up each and everything in your life the first time you try it. Nobody is successful the first time they try things, but you got to keep at it. Sometimes I wonder how is it that I've stuck with golf for 20 years, but I've been making the same mistakes for so many years. But then I go for coaching. I go for coaching. I ask my
Yeah.
friends. I watch videos. I do all sorts of things. In fact, I went for a coaching session the other day and I've injured my finger. And so it's 1 week I haven't played golf. But what I'm saying is, you got to keep doing it. You got to keep moving.
Right. So it's now about luck. So do you think luck
No,
plays a vital role in your journey? Did you think you end up here back when you started your journey?
absolutely not. I think luck has been a huge part of my this thing. But let me tell you, and this is one thing I brought up in one of my classes in the last semester. I talked about my personal journey, which I've not shared with you. And this guy kept saying, "But sir, you had luck. But sir, you had luck." I said, "Hang on, you idiot. There were so many other things in my life. You've not acknowledged all the other difficulties that I've had. You're only focusing on the luck. How is it possible?" Okay. But you have to make your own luck. You have to be in the right place at the right time. If I said everything was predestined, then I
Hmm.
don't need to get out of bed. I don't need to write that CV because it's destined. I will get that job. I'll get the promotion. It doesn't happen like that.
Right.
We are using all these kind of things to take away from the fact that, look, smart work, hard work, planning, and I'll swear to God, I had no clue that this is how my life would unfold. But I'll tell you what I did. I just knew that I needed to be better. I needed to know that my economics would be better. Okay, my economics weren't that good. I wanted to be, instead of a motorcycle, I would rather have a car. Instead of this, I'd rather have that. And so on and so forth. I planned it, plotted it. I always knew I wanted to be a writer, a columnist. I knew I wanted to be famous. I knew I wanted to be an actor. I knew I wanted to be a singer. I've done all these things, but you have to plant the seed in order for something to come out. Okay,
Hmm.
so luck is a great thing, but you got to make your own luck.
Yeah, and luck is abbreviated as labor under correct knowledge. So you can you can increase your knowledge as much as you can. All right. So last question, I think it's more or less related to the career, but perhaps we can take it because we have parked it for so long. Where is it? I think it was related to how to deal with the uh, yeah, how do we deal with the envy in our careers? So there are people who are leg pullers. You have to deal with them in your career. So how to deal with them?
Good one. First of all, you should be grateful that you're in a position that someone can envy you. सही है कि नहीं? The other part of the equation is that we always worry about log kya kahenge, ye kya kahenge. Let me put a black mark on my forehead so people don't get nazar and evil eye. Let me not boast. Let me not do this. Let me. Thank you. 12 o'clock. Uh, the thing is, look, if there was such a thing as evil eye, if there was such a thing as envy and so on and so forth, then every Mercedes going down the road would be bashed up, smashed up, scratched, and whatever not. Okay. So these are things that we use to fool ourselves. Of course, there are people who are envious of you. Fine. If you do good things in your life, good thoughts, good work, good deeds, you will have a protective aura that nothing can penetrate. When you start to having all these funny thoughts, then you create holes in your aura and all sorts of other nonsense can come in. So build up your protective aura, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. So simple.
Right. Although I said it, let's take the last question, but I think Tahir has a very good question, and it's related to the current time. So we see a lot of things going on the social media, lots of talks, lots of conversation, lots of presentation, like we are doing right now. So how an individual can keep himself or herself on track, and how he can make sure that he's attending the right programs, how to filter them out, what's the I mean, how can he develop a plan for himself by keeping focus on the kind of content that he needs to focus on?
Tahir Naeem, thank you very much for that. And I think that's the a nice way to end this session. We all have a remote control. Okay. We can change channels. It's the same thing with our mind. We can easily switch from one thing to the other. We can discern what is good for us, what is beneficial for us, and what's a waste of time. Okay. If you look at the way in which people are following loggers and bloggers and vloggers, they're following people on Twitter, they're following people on Facebook, and they have to comment about each and every. No reason to do that. Okay. Oh, Jennifer Aniston is getting back together with Brad Pitt. Who cares? What's it to you? Okay. UAE and Israel have signed an agreement. Oh, what's it to you? Does it make a difference to you? Does it make a difference to Pakistan? It doesn't. So what I'm saying is we are getting involved and enmeshed in all sorts of nonsense that have no consequence to our lives. So if you prioritize what is it, just a simple filter. How does this help me? That's all that it is. Okay. Do I really need to know it? Okay. Is it of use to me? Is it true? Is it valid? There are so many filters that you can use to remove the junk from your life and just keep the pure and simple stuff that will help you. You like my BMW shirt?
All right. Thank you so much, Leon. It's always, exciting. You always create a light humor for all the people who listen to you. So thanks for all your humor, for all your insights.
Bring your positive personal energy to everything that you do.
Everything, absolutely. Thanks for this wonderful message. So, thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. Love from Leon and Danish, and keep stay tuned with our channels, with our pages, to have more such sessions with other exciting guests. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rain, but make sure that you take care of yourself. Take care. Love.
Take care. Bye bye.